What is going on? I want to welcome you from half court for today, October 11th, 2023. I am one of your hosts, Sean Murphy, alongside the man, the myth, the legend, the Marquette Heat coming from that seat. It's the legend himself, Troy Berger. I went with a deeper one this time. Did you like that?
Yeah, deep was good, I thought,
You
good job
always
with
like
that.
you always just sit there going like, "Oh god, how the is he gonna be is he gonna go over the top with it this time?"
Yeah, pretty much, but really what's crazy is, like, those Troy Sergeys last, like, 6 seconds, and that's, like, a very painfully awkward 6 seconds to wait for you to be done, but it's
Well,
okay.
yeah, and you know the best part is, you know the reason why I do that. Like just full disclosure, because people at home like, "Why the heck does he only do that for Troy?" Because I know for a fact it makes Troy uncomfortable, and for me, that's really funny. And
Yeah,
so, like, it's a favorite little part of the podcast because that's just our friendship in a nutshell, is it not, Troy?
pretty much you making me very uncomfortable.
Yep, because I love you, but
Go fuck yourself.
anyway, this is from no, I'm kidding. I love you, Troy. Anyway, this is from Half Court, where each and every week we sit down, talk about all things NBA basketball. Usually, we are also joined by our boy Jeff Iafrady. However, he's dealing with some health stuff. Hope he feels better soon. He's getting knocked the out by them wisdom teeth. I've definitely been there. Troy's definitely been there. That sucks. So we hope Jeff feels better soon. But for now, you and I, Troy, we're throwing it back like you and I can do, and we're just doing it, you and I. Are you ready? Do you think you can handle just being locked in the cage, mano y mano?
Yeah, and we're not throwing it back with a backcourt violation. We're not throwing it from half court. We're just throwing it back with a throwback, right, Sean? We're not going over and back on this one.
Well, this was from half court. It was a good run. This podcast will never. No, I'm kidding. That was a good one. God dang it! But Troy, speaking of a good one, it was a good week of preseason basketball. Great opening slate to start the season. You know, as you know, it is absolutely nothing, a barren wasteland for about 2.5 months, and then October hits, and all of a sudden, it's like a fire hose of just nonstop basketball. I mean, Troy, literally, like like 10 days ago from when we're recording this is my yeah, like 10 days ago is when Drew Holiday was traded.
Yeah,
2 weeks
right.
ago is when Dame was traded.
Yeah.
That feels like worlds. That feels like ages ago already.
Right, not even 2 weeks, not even 14 days.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it feels like Drew Holiday just got in the building and it's like, oh, there's him playing a preseason game.
Yeah,
Oh, like
right,
within like 5 days of the trade. Wild, but
right, and
well,
just Da even seeing Dame warm up in Milwaukee and not have it be in Portland,
weird,
that alone is just crazy, so
weird, just weird. We're going to talk about, we're definitely going to talk about our takeaways, from preseason and just what we've been watching throughout the league as a whole. But Troy, I mean, this is an NBA podcast, but at the heart of it, this is a Pistons podcast. So we got to start with the Detroit Pistons, their preseason game, early buzz we're hearing out of training camp and more, because this is from half court reach and every week. Troy, you and I sit down, do this dang thing. If you like this pod, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that mother notification bell so you're not missing any of the content. Otherwise,
Go fuck yourself.
I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do that soundbite anymore. I heard it. So that was like it was from a really funny wrestling bit from last week from like one of my favorite wrestlers. It's funny, Troy. Go yourself. Anyway, Troy, preseason game from this past week. A lot of takeaways to be had. Obviously, we want to preface this episode with it's only preseason. I wish I could just have that in like big bold words just over this episode just the entire time. Just it's only preseason as a massive quantifier. But I feel like with basketball, I feel like there's a lot more you can take away from preseason action because this is a lot closer to the actual teams that we're going to be seeing on a night to night basis than it is when you're watching, say, an NFL preseason because you're implementing like at least like 30 or 40 new guys into a system in football most of it's really for tryouts. Whereas in the NBA, like, yeah, like you have some guys auditioning for rotation minutes, and then you have some guys rotate, like, like that are auditioning for those final couple spots on the team. But I mean, Troy, I mean, in the NBA, especially for teams like the Pistons, players play. And I think we saw that on Sunday. Like Cade, Ivy, Asar, like Duran before, he had the thing with his ankle, like they were getting significant minutes. And I think we saw some pretty encouraging signs overall. What from that preseason game, what was your initial takeaways and what have you been thinking about ever since?
Well, I think the big thing, Sean, is that Marvin Bagley might be in the upcoming season front runner for the MVP race. That was probably the biggest thing. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, Marvin Bagley, to my point, not to my MVP point, but to my point, was very much a surprise that second half coming
Yeah.
out. That was big. Didn't see that offensive surge coming at all. But I mean, I guess seeing Ivy get in the swing of things, seeing that he's quick, he had that nice 3-pointer. We know the range is still there. But I think from Caden Ivy's perspective, what I saw was just them kind of getting back in that feel, that funk of, running up and down an NBA court. And I think to your point, it's only preseason. These guys got to get back to running in a stadium too, right? Open stadium versus Rico Hines runs, right? And there's a lot that goes into that, just even shooting with an NBA basket. I mean, there's just so much that preseason is necessary for. And I guess with those two guys, that's what I saw the most. Killian had some nice plays on the defensive end. I think he had 5 steals, which was really, really impressive. So just
5
seeing
steals, 7 assists.
Yeah, right. But the big one, Sean, Asar Thompson is a stud. He can play the game of basketball on both ends of the court. Cutting and slashing to the rim, I thought was awesome from Asar. Defense, he had a really nice play on Booker. I just feel like he is just already going to be a stud. And like we've been saying all summer, he might be our best on-ball defender day one.
Yeah.
And that's very bold to say for a rookie, especially a rookie who's as young as him. But it's real. It's there. And Jalen Duran, offensively, defensively, I mean, we know what we're getting out of him. So, I mean, just seeing how everyone come together, seeing that there's really no one to be worried about, seeing that, Coach Monty Williams, I thought, had a great little debut. You can tell he cares about the guys. You can tell already that the younger guys are buying into him. So, I mean, I guess I kind of made a very broad paintbrush there of covering everything. But really, it was fun to see everything.
I'll start with kind of like my least serious observation from the preseason game. I knew Monty Williams was tall because he used to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
But dude, is he tall? Like, especially, being used to seeing Dwayne Casey on the sideline,
Or
just like that just that stark contrast. And like, especially when they pan from one side of the court and it's Monty standing there, and you have freaking Frank Vogel, who in comparison looks like, he's in like middle school. It's absolutely surreal. But I mean, also, like, in all seriousness, like, another thing with Monty, like you could just tell the presence he has immediately and just the cachet he has, with the players day one. Like obviously, you see players, coming up, coaches like coming up and talking to the players all the time. But, there are moments where, Ivy would check out of a game. He'd make sure he'd come sit down and sit next to him on the bench so that they could talk through something. Like, you can just see this guy is just a teacher of the game of basketball. And so like, you in just those first initial like minutes of watching him coach, like you can see exactly like the guy that he is. You know what I mean? It's like, not that I didn't know this about Monty, but like, it's just, he's one of the best coaches in the league. And just seeing him do his thing in Detroit, it's just, man, this guy's going to be here for like 6+ years at least.
Very exciting.
So,
very exciting.
Yep, for sure. But I think ultimately my biggest takeaways, first of all, a really resilient group because, going through and especially getting beaten up the way that they did to start the game, it was a matinee performance for all intents and purposes. They kind of had to, like it was like like 3 in the afternoon on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, it's always been kind of iffy, especially, with young teams. They can always start a little bit slow. That was kind of a theme for the Pistons over the last couple of years. So to see that kind of continue in their first preseason game when training camp's been going on for like a week, Not particularly surprising. But what I would say was impressive, like, for example, Sar Thompson. The thing that impressed me the most right off the bat, Troy, like, he came out the gates wanting Devin Booker. He came out the gate and he didn't look intimidated. He didn't look like this was his first experience on an NBA court. Like, he came out, I was like, "Yep, my assignment's Devin Booker. I gotta go. I have to go out and stop him. That's my job." And you know what? For the first quarter, he did not do that at all. In fact, Devin Booker was, was looking like prime Devin Booker, ready to play in the NBA Finals like tomorrow. Him and like they shot for 85% or 89% that first quarter as a team. But the way Asar adjusted throughout the game, the way that you saw him when he started to have an effect on that side of the ball, because he had that block on Devin Booker in the second quarter too. Like, Phoenix went from shooting 89% in the first quarter to 32% in the second. And then they came out slow, and then second half, Detroit comes out slow again. Phoenix without their starters, they're able to kind of outscore Detroit in that quarter. But then you talk about the bolt of energy that Marvin Bagley came out with off the bench. If I had to describe the biggest difference between James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley to me in that game, I think, first of all, I think it's really premature for people to be calling that, that competition already. I would certainly say that, if it continues like this, as of right now, Marvin Bagley definitely did just grab a lead in that role, especially, if he's going to be able to play like that. And I'd say the biggest difference between those guys right now is they both play with energy, but with Marvin, it looked like he was able to channel that energy and he was able to be in the right spots. Like, he was crashing the glass. He was able to carry the ball up the court and get into the paint. Whereas like Wiseman, a lot of times he would just be he would be super intent on wanting to post up, get the ball. He would call for it, but a lot, just that lack of experience and those things that he's missing from all those reps, you know, he just makes mistakes, which, of course you expect to happen, but especially, even though this team's young and this season's about development, they also want guys who are ready to go day one. And I mean, especially if you're talking about, we've been talking about the redundancy of those two guys, all offseason, and that, something was going to have to give at some point. And if James Wiseman was going to get that role, we were going to have to see those flashes pretty quickly. But I think instead, Troy, I think we were reminded like, oh yeah, Marvin Bagley was a number 2 pick in the NBA for a reason. Like, at the very least, like, this guy can come out and get 10 points a game on a night to night basis without running a single play for him. And
Right,
that's
and I
valuable.
right, and I would call that having skills, right? I mean, just
Yep.
he has skills on the offensive and defensive end, and especially just even his post up game, and able to, you mentioned, be quick and crash the boards and slash to the rim and be open as far as cutting goes, and yeah, and Wiseman, he looked a little
Well, it's more
confused that time.
nuanced too.
Yeah,
Like, Wiseman can't really he doesn't have much of a screen game right
right.
now either.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you're like a guy like Wiseman, that tall, that much length, that much versatility, like, and you don't have much experience in the pick and roll, and like all you can really do at the moment is post up.
But it's
Again, it's only
exciting.
one game,
Right, right,
but
right, right. It's only
but
preseason, Sean.
and it's only preseason,
Yeah,
absolutely. However, I mean, it's kind of it's not like this hasn't been, like a form of a trend, right? Or like
right,
that we didn't see like really the only reason why things were looking bleak for Marvin Bagley, especially to end last season, was he just couldn't stay on the court. When he played, he showed these types of flashes. My question is, what can this look like if he's able to string together a healthy month, a
right,
healthy 2 months?
right. Because we didn't really expect that going into this season because we were a little pessimistic that he can't,
Yeah.
he can't stay healthy when he is on the court. He can be sometimes a liability, yada yada yada. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. He really showed that he was a top 2 pick in the NBA draft yesterday. Again, it's only preseason, but just those sparks that he has the talent, the capability. Because you look at, let's just use the word bust out there for other busts. Let's
Right.
take the biggest bust that we're all aware of, Darko, as Pistons fans. He didn't have those flashes. He was just downright bad, right?
Yep.
Bagley may not have reached to the potential that we all wanted and thought he would be. However, he has those flashes. He has that capability deep within to be that star, and that should be exciting. And Wiseman, another number 1, 2 pick, maybe a very even small degree true too, because again, he was picked second for a reason. But I would
Right.
say even Wiseman has a flash of that. So
Well, his game, like, again, just with that time that he missed and just the amount of time he was out of the game of basketball at such a pivotal stage of his development. I mean, you're even seeing, on the football side, Deshaun Watson, a very different circumstance, a very different case. But I mean, missing 2 years of football, he's a completely different player. Right? And, especially when you're talking about the high, the high intensity, high pace, you know, and especially the standards that it takes to be, at the top of this game and, at the top of this profession, you question if that's something that can be recouped. And obviously, with the system that you have and, with the contract that he's on, I still think there's not really much of a reason to, not have him in house and see how he can develop in that time because, I mean, again, they were doing that with Marvin to a certain extent ever since he's come into town, and that patience from those bursts that we've seen could perhaps pay off. The only thing though, Troy, we talk about, like, him being able to stay healthy. Trivia question, when's the last time Marvin Bagley has played over 60 games in a season?
is that his rookie year?
His rookie year, he's done it 1 time. And otherwise, he played 13 in 2019, 2020. He played 43 in 2020, 2021. The season he was traded to Detroit, he played in 48 games, 30 in Sacramento, and then 18 to Detroit, and then he got injured, before the season ended. And then last season in Detroit, he was only able to be in 42 games. So, really with Marvin again, like the flashes have started to show, like, especially for like what his role could be within Detroit and those expectations. But can he just be healthy on a night to night basis? Because again, if he is, we saw the impact.
Right, right. And just having both of those guys not as centerpiece cornerstones of these are our future relies within Marvin Bagley and James Wiseman. That's not what the organization is doing, but to have those guys there on the bench, able to come in, able to have impact on the games on both sides of the court. I mean, that's really the role that we're asking for these two guys to have.
Yep.
Availability there for us. Players that will come in handy, if you will.
Yep.
And those guys certainly will, again, if they're reaching the potential of what we as fans, as diehard fans, deep down know that they're capable of. So,
Well, and especially you talk about, like, pivotal pieces off the bench, like what is a guy's job when they're, when they're coming off the second unit? It's not just to keep things afloat while guys are on the bench. Like on good teams, they're supposed to be that spark plug, that, that bolt of energy that comes into the game, changes the dynamic, hopefully, either maintains or gives you some form of momentum, going forward. Obviously, you're not looking for them to be the stars, but again, you see what happens of, hey, Marvin, we need buckets. We need to get back into this game. He's one of the guys on this team that has the capability to do that. Not everyone on this roster can, very few, in fact. But when healthy, Marvin Bagley's definitely that guy. But I mean, Asar Thompson, we talked about his defensive ability. I mean, my gosh, like we touched on a little bit, his ability to cut to the basket, man. Like his just overall IQ and awareness, like, when Marvin was on the court for like the couple quarters, he was a part of just about everything. Asar played for 38 minutes and he was a part of everything the entire time. His conditioning is excellent. And he's just one of those rookies where I don't think he's gonna look like a rookie for long, Troy. Like, he already, showed a ability to, to get like 10 plus, points just off of cutting alone. Imagine what this guy can do once he starts feeling more comfortable with his jump shot because the playmaking, absolutely there. The
Right.
defense, absolutely there. I mean, honestly, Troy, like he's going to be a multiple time All-Star if he can develop right. I really believe it.
Right. He's definitely got to get the jump shot, as you mentioned. But this is Troy Weaver, right? I mean, this is Troy Weaver able to find out guys. And of course, when you're picking in top five, I guess to a degree, it's hard to miss. But certainly in a class where we just saw Jarris Walker ball out for the Pacers. He I guess was an option there
Yep.
at five. We think of some of the other guys that were in that draft, and a lot that we were talking about in those early months of June was, do we trade up? Right. So that was an
Yeah.
option that I guess was there. But no, we chose to stay at five, and we were comfortable with Asar Thompson. And it's paying off, right? He has all the athleticism in the world and all
Yeah.
the potential and a ceiling that it's way too early to even cap because it looks that good. So.
It seems like it's going to pay off in dividends. And if this team is to make a jump this season, he's going to be one of the pivotal reasons why. Obviously, again, it's a preseason game, but their ability to still, overcome a deficit there, when they were, causing turnovers and, making them uncomfortable and forcing action in the fast court. The biggest thing that I came away just from a general feeling from this game, Troy, is it like if you look at the vision of the team, that was probably the most clear I've seen Troy Weaver's vision and identity for this roster on the court in the 3 years that he's been here. And
Right,
I think
because
the
a
reason
lot more
why is because
experience.
yeah, because you're seeing all the pieces finally come together. That's what happens when the core four goes from Saban Lee, Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart, and Sadiq Bey to Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and Asar Thompson. You know what I mean? Like just once you're seeing the talent, and especially all super talented guys that just fit the mold of the city. And like even Jaden Ivey, offensively, you talk about, his jump shot and how comfortable he was feeling on that end. He had some moments defensively where you see the flashes of this guy, having the potential to be really good on that end too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And again, we want guys who can play both ends of the court because again, when you win 17 games, okay, the Pistons struggle. We're both. I mean, let's just be real. We were not a good offensive team. We couldn't put the ball in the basket, but we also couldn't defend very well either because again, all but 17 games, the other team scored more than us. That's basic basketball. So yeah, I mean, we have to be honest and realistic with our problems. And Ivy, Thompson, great guys who solve them. So
Yeah, 100%. As far as the, because, naturally once the game ends, you start thinking about, the future to come, the next games, the storylines coming out of it, the questions that you can ask. And again, it's preseason, so you don't want to do too much of that. However, naturally, my head goes to the guys who weren't able to play tonight. So guys like Bojan Bogdanovic, guys, guys like Monte Morris, the latest, like our like some of our newer additions on this team, right? Like, what does this team look like with all of the pieces finally together? And more specifically, what does the runway look like for a guy like Killian when Monte Morris is back? Because if Killian's playing like that, Troy, I'd argue you need to find time for Killian on the court. Now, again, he did this last preseason too, and he did play pretty well to close the season as well when games did get a little less, how do I say it, consequential. However, this is like a flash in a pan this week. Like Monty's been openly praising Killian through training camp, and it seems like there's a little bit of an air of like he seems confident, which for Killian is a big step.
yeah, it definitely is, Sean. And I think with Killian too, uh, year four now. We thought last year 3 would take the jump. However, we look at all the games that he missed in year 2. We looked at even in year 1, his rookie year.
Well,
It's
even just the elevated
different,
role he had to
right?
play, like, he had to
Right.
essentially take over for Cade, like,
Yeah.
in December, right?
Right,
Like,
and it's different language than what we even were talking about a month ago with Monty Williams, and we're talking about, okay, we're a couple weeks away from training camp, right? And we were really pessimistic about Killian's future and role, but
we were
seeing,
questioning if he was gonna be on the roster come
yeah,
training camp.
right. So to see this shift is exciting, just because we were all here for him and wanting him to succeed all along. We were never wanting him to fail, right? So,
Of course, yeah, you don't root
yeah,
for guys to fail
so
ever, right?
right. So seeing this new little shift, even in Monty Williams, and again, he was not a guy who was around last season, uh, because obviously he was with Phoenix and we had Dwayne Casey. So for a guy to walk in with really not a lot of, uh, I would guess he wouldn't have a lot of footage of Killian Hayes in the past 4 years. Just kind of getting what his take is on Killian within the practices, within the open gyms, whatever, and then assessing, okay, this guy can play. That should tell you this guy can play, because he doesn't have any biases going into the season. He's not looking at past. He's only looking at present and only looking
Mhm.
at future. So that is exciting.
Well, and a lot of the problems of Killian, again, they've never been character issues. They've never been, his work ethic. They've never even been his ability to play. It's all been what's in between, in between those ears. And I just, I look at that entire coaching staff from top to bottom. And, I just, I look forward to see for guys like Killian in particular what it can look like, like with that time in the system with Monty, with guys like Jarrett Jack, with guys like, Steven Silas, like what type of impact can it have? And, more importantly, like, I'm just interested to see what his, role as a whole can look like, because, we see, examples where guys, are trying to figure it out in the first couple of years of the league, and all of a sudden things just click and they can find a role. Like, I don't think, if Killian was a flat out bust, he wouldn't be here, right? And so, like, we with the I think what was abundantly clear, especially, from the preseason game, as we're recording last night, was the things that will definitely always, at the very least, you know, keep him in conversations in this league are his passing ability and his defense. Like, when he's doing that at his highest level, which the other night he was doing it at his highest level, the impact was apparent. It was like a billboard, driving on the highway that you can't miss, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
when he's struggling, it can be like you look around and you wonder where he even is.
Right.
So,
Or it's that obvious thing you can't miss from a highway because it's that bad, right?
yep, uh-huh, yep, or it's that thing on or it's that thing on the box score that makes you question your existence and why you even began watching basketball to begin with. No, I'm kidding. Shout out Killian, glad he played well. Not quite sure how I feel about the mustache. Maybe he just needs to grow it out a little bit more, but hey, if he wants to have a stash and it's helping him with his swagger, go ahead, man. What are your thoughts on the stash, Troy? A
Well,
non-consequential,
yeah.
thing.
I just think it makes him look older, which is good. I don't want to look at young rookie Killian anymore. I don't want to look at that. The pre-stash is the old Killian, and the new stash is the current. It goes with this game, Sean. It
You
goes with
can't
this
so
game.
what you're saying is if he shaves, you can't look at him the same.
No, can't.
Oh my gosh. Troy, before we move on from Pistons, is there anything else that you were thinking about from the game, or any other questions or things that
Yeah.
you're thinking about as training camp's underway?
Yeah, we covered pretty much everything as far as each of the players. One last guy we never talked about, Joe Harris made a couple nice buckets.
Yeah.
He's going
Yep.
to be very much utilized on the offensive end to come in and give us a little bit of offensive scourge. And Alec Burks too, another guy we didn't mention, but
Yep.
he's where he picked off last year, kind of that stud that again can just get buckets. And with a team like this is based around a young core, and a young core as the identity of the team. You need your Bojans, you need your Alec Burkses, and now you need your Joe Harrises to get buckets. You need
Yep.
certified bucket getters,
Yep.
and that's what those three guys are. So
And I maintain, you look at this roster from the top down, this is not a 17-win team. So, like, you look at the power rankings, you look at where this team can go. Like, again, you know, don't get me wrong, this preseason game was similar to parts of last season where it's like, oh, you see the potential and you see it clear as day, but you also see the moments where it's like, oh, yep, this is where they have to grow. But it's not, you very much see the vision if you're tuning in and looking at who this team is, especially like when guys like Asar Thompson, you know, uh, Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, and Jalen Duren are both so good and full of so much potential, but also are just Detroit Pistons to their core.
Right.
Those
Right.
are the things. Those are the things that are encouraging.
And that's what Restore is all about. I just love that
Yep.
this is a restoration project, not a
Yep.
rebuild project. And
Yep.
that's the kind of stuff that we want to play Detroit basketball, because Detroit
Right. It really
basketball,
wasn't like it's not lingo.
yeah,
It's like a legitimate. It's a
right,
legitimate thing that's been actually lived out,
yeah,
and we're
right.
seeing it happen.
Yeah, 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 and a restoration because of the deep history we have, because Detroit basketball actually means something.
Yeah,
We're not
people might
Buzz
like the.
City. Buzz City means nothing, Sean. There's no culture there.
Well, I mean, they might have to sell the team because
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you saw Troy. Big news, in the world of the Charlotte Hornets. They're, one of the, obviously one of the greatest players to ever touch the game of basketball. Ty Jones just requested his trade publicly on X.
he just
Uh,
got there.
yep. Now, in all seriousness, I hope Ty Jones is doing okay because there's a lot of reasons to genuinely question if he is doing okay because of his unusual activity on social media. If you see some of the live videos and look at his room and his walls and things like it's things that make you question it, where his mental well-being is. So I don't want to make too much light of the situation. However, I mean, Troy, when you talk about like when we talk about the like, when I started talking about like the importance of character, like in the basketball world, like people like, oh well, you could have a team full of nice guys, but if they can't play basketball, what does it matter? Troy, again, we talk. I feel like I have to highlight this on a regular basis because of situations like this when you're in when you are one of the top 250, 300 like players in the world of basketball, the things that separate you are not normally based off of talent. Like there might be certain athletic abilities that some guys just have and some guys
Everyone can
are just
dribble,
limited.
everyone can shoot, everyone can defend, everyone can
Right.
jump. Right.
But
Yeah.
what but these super athletes even, what separates the good from the great? The guys who are dedicated, the guys who are in the gym, the guys, who can galvanize the troops and have those dynamics and lead and cultivate a culture, right? Whereas, you see teams like Charlotte where they miss on draft picks all the time. You have guys that are in and out of the league within a couple of years and you see the start, like, again, like people look at Detroit and go, where's the hope? Where's the momentum? Where's the progress? I'm like, are you kidding me? Look at
Mhm.
them compared to any other rebuilding team in the league. And they have, other than the Oklahoma City Thunder, they have like one of the brightest futures in the league from the talent that they have in house. And and it truly shows, like, when you actually listen to these players talk and how they play the game as well, that that Monty was right about the character of the guys in this locker room. Like, there is like, that's why it's so important.
Right. Yeah, it's very important, Sean. And I would hate to be a Hornets fan. I would hate to be a Bulls fan, even though they're not fully entering a rebuild, but just they're us in 2019, right? And
Yep.
I think that's where maybe the frustration from Pistons fans come from, is we've been identifying with this rebuild since 2009, and the rebuild did not start in 2009. It started in 2020. Really, with trading Andre Drummond was kind of the big turning point there. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it's just I think with a loss, Sean, when you lose a basketball game, the PTSD from Ben Gordon and Rodney Stuckey and Charlie Villanueva, at least for me, starts to set. Then I have to remind myself, those aren't the guys on the court. They may have the same jersey that says Pistons on it, but those are
Yep.
not the same guys on the court, right? We have a young core, a young foundation that we're building off of, when those teams never had that. That was just get some mediocre, somewhat above average NBA players and expect them to go win a championship. That doesn't happen. So
Yep.
I think about this stuff often because again, I have so much scars in my brain with those teams.
Right.
But now to turn the corner is it has
Well,
to we have to have a different mindset, Pistons fans.
Well, yeah, and let's face it too. I mean, I understand why. I understand why fans, feel that way, and you even understand why organizations that lose year over year over year have such a hard time climbing out of this pit. Because yes, you get the opportunity to draft at the top of the draft, but we've even seen with the Clippers, they got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and they still can't get past the conference finals because when you have a culture
Oh,
of
the semis.
yeah. Yeah. Well, they got to
Yeah,
the
the conference
conference
finals won.
finals.
Yeah,
Yeah, one time. But other than that, like they can't get past that. And it's not like they don't have the talent. It's not like they don't have the coaching. It's not like they don't even have the owner. Like from top to bottom, like the Clippers are now a class organization. But when you have a history of losing, when you have a culture of not being one of the best, but in fact being one of the laughing stocks, that tends to leave an effect. And yeah, we saw it in Detroit for a while. But the difference in why you can in why it's important and a blessing to have a restoration is because you have a blueprint. You have something to build back off of. What great Charlotte Hornets team do they have to model their rebuild after?
right.
Legitimately.
Right. Their greatest team is the greatest team with the biggest legacy is that worst team, that worst record of all time, that 7-win season back in the lockout. Their biggest legacies there is the worst team, Sean, which means there's no history of winning.
All right. All right, trivia time. What is the most wins the Charlotte Hornets have gotten in one season? Bonus
This
points.
includes the Bobcats, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
47.
54.
Okay.
But according to StatMuse, they've only gotten over 50 wins in a season 3 times. 2 of them were back-to-back seasons in 96, 97, and 97, 98. So Troy, they have literally they were good when we were babies. That is it.
And good
And
never gave them playoff hump, right? Push it
yeah,
over.
yeah, no, it didn't give them playoff hope at all. I mean, like when they were getting 50 plus wins, that was when Michael freaking Jordan was going for rings 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
yeah, man, it's just with those types of situations, in all seriousness, with Kai Jones, I really hope he is okay. But it is funny when you see stuff. Like, did you see someone posted? I'm trying to pull it up right now, but there's an NBA player that was like, like, are you good? Like, like, are you mentally like what? Oh yeah, it was Terrence Ross. He said, "Is he all there mentally?" And then Kai Jones responded, "I'm the greatest of all time. Check my highlights." And Terrence Ross replied, "So no." It's just like, yeah, like that kind of just about summarizes it. Just about puts it into words.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Troy, let's talk about the rest of the league for a minute. There's been a good amount of preseason basketball already in just a few days. I'm not sure what you've been able to watch, but there were 2 teams in particular that I wanted to talk about. The first one, I'm not sure, did you see anything about the very first game of the preseason? It was Mavericks Timberwolves.
Yeah, I watched the highlights, but I didn't. I mean, nothing. I mean, did I miss something major with that besides uh, Cat looked
The,
okay and Luca looked
well,
awesome? And
the thing that really stood out to me, and again, only one game, but Troy, that that Dallas team did not look massively improved to me at all. In fact, they couldn't stop a nosebleed against the Timberwolves. Minnesota was doing whatever they wanted. And, they are definitely an improved roster. It's only one game. They were in Abu Dhabi. I'll concede that there could be all these different extenuating factors. But I'm just saying, Troy, from the samples that I saw, I just don't see how this team's gonna get a stop. I just
Sure, but
don't.
Luka looked all right, and so did
Luka
Kyrie. But those guys look good even when they were losing last year. So I get your point.
well, Luka's great. Don't get me wrong, but when you have a guy that is that generationally great on one side of the ball and borderline a liability on the other side, you really need a team that's tailored to his strengths, a roster that can compensate for those shortcomings. And for the first couple of years of his career, for to an extent, they had that. They had guys like Dorian Finney-Smith who could step up and guard their number one guy on a night-to-night basis. You had guys like Reggie Bullock who could spread the floor and play competent defense. I'm not claiming he's an all defensive, all NBA defensive guy, but he could stay in front of guys if you needed him to.
Mhm, mhm.
Whereas you go down this roster, I mean, who's going to be there? I mean, Troy, who's their rim protector? Dwight Powell?
Yeah, I was gonna say, but he was
Derek
he was their
Lively?
rim protector last year, right?
Yeah, Derek Lively?
I don't even know who that is.
He was the guy that they just drafted out of Duke
Okay,
this last year. He was the big man out of Duke.
gotcha.
So super raw. He's not going to be able to play year one. And that was pretty common knowledge coming out of the draft. But nonetheless, Troy, I mean, Grant Williams was their biggest, off-season acquisition, all things considered. And although I do think he can, fill that role to a certain extent, and he can play really solid, defense overall. This roster is just so weak throughout the margins, and they just don't have the pieces to make this team better than it is right now. So I don't want to overreact off of one game. I still want to see how this team looks into the preseason. But I mean, full transparency, I didn't have too much faith in this Mavericks team going into the season. I have even less faith after what I saw on Thursday.
Sure. Porzingis, what'd you think about him?
Yeah, that's actually the other thing I wanted to talk about. I think, yeah, Boston. So, one of the couple things that I thought were interesting with them. I want to know your thoughts, but first of all, I mean, you see the vision right off the bat offensively with what Porzingis can add to this team, and especially with Drew Holiday
Right,
now,
definitely
now in
a
the
pick
fold
and
too.
pop, pick and pop, pick and roll kind of guy. Which really, I mean, Robert Williams was kind of their biggest pick and roll threat. Which he's a good
Al
player.
Horford, I guess, but
Yeah,
even then,
yeah.
like Al Horford's like 38.
Yeah, right. You needed some fresh blood, even though he's not too fresh.
Right. Right. Well, you need someone, because, even though Porzingis, you could say whatever you want about him as a third option with Jason Tatum and Jaylen
Yeah,
Brown.
yeah,
Are you
not bad.
kidding me? Like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
especially, you see the flashes of, Boston having this guy who can space the floor, who can
Mhm.
get lobs at the basket. Like, there truly is another element to them offensively with him on the court. And, they truly in the flashes that they had showed why, they're as dangerous as they are. A
Mhm.
guy who I think is actually gonna be an underrated piece for them this season, who actually just got extended this past weekend, is a guy named Peyton Pritchard.
Oh, yeah.
I know
He
he's a
brought
guy
on
who's
that fourth quarter.
yeah, I know he's a guy that people make jokes about, and I know that people see him, and I mean, let's just call it the way it is. He's like a 6'1" white guy in the NBA.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, there's a lot of, preconceived notions, and, especially when you're a smaller guy like that, people, kind of, look at you with some skepticism of what he can actually do. But if you've been paying attention to Peyton Pritchard ever since he's entered the league, when he's been on the court, he's played good basketball.
And
And
that's all you ask for with a guy like that is
yeah,
a guy that can complement the bigger role, well, obviously the stars, and just come in there and be a star of his own role, which his
yeah,
role, they're not going to be asking much out of him, in my opinion.
right.
But
But
if he can bring something, that's
Mhm.
important.
But with the moves that they made, he will now have to play a role if this team wants to be successful. And I think if anything, like the national spotlight, people might look at Peyton again, like on NBA Twitter, a lot of the casual fans, he's a meme. But Troy, he's no joke. He is a certified basketball player. He had 26 points against Philly in that preseason debut. And it's only preseason, we'll keep spamming that pre-qualifier like a mother, but nonetheless, I mean, he fits the Boston Celtics perfectly. The guy can shoot, can shoot the laces off the rim. He's an absolute, he's better defensively than people give him credit for. And he can kind of run that point. And, you talk about what you need from a guy off the bench, just that spark plug energy. Kind of gives me some Carlos Arroyo vibes.
Yeah, with handles, with better handles. I
Yep.
mean, Arroyo had handles, but this guy
Yep.
has handles.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And, on the other side, with Philly, it'll be interesting to see what they can do. I mean, Tyrese Maxey, I think he has the chance to be an absolute stud, but I mean, again, looking at that Philly team, I just don't see any
No,
hope for them in the
yeah,
world right now.
sure. I
Yeah.
think most NBA fans out there.
Yeah. 100%. But I mean, Troy, like looking at like what's to come. I mean, of all the stories and the massive things going on. I mean, we have Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. They'll have faced off for the first time on like
Exciting.
actually as we're wrapping up this podcast here in a few minutes, like the game will start.
At 8
So
o'clock. Okay.
super excited about that. You know, when looking at the league as a whole, Troy, I mean, obviously so many storylines now, that are popping up. Like what are you most excited? Like, what questions are you most excited to see answered? Like
Yeah, that's
personal,
a great question. Well, obviously, the most obvious one as a Pistons fan is what's this team's potential? What's this
right?
team's ceiling as far as this season? What things can we even look forward to? Not this 2023, 2024 season, but what even the 2024, 2025 season can we look forward to? That'll be something. But around the league, I think Dame in Milwaukee is going to be the biggest one that I'm going to be glued to.
Yeah.
How that's going to work out with Giannis. Obviously, you already brought up Dallas. I just love Luka so much that I want the best for him. So if they have another disappointing season, that's going to be very tough to watch, but also be very interesting to unravel. I guess I'll be here with the popcorn with that. But
Yep.
also a team that we've been two other teams that I think have all the potential to get to the finals, but it will be very much more easier said than done is Phoenix and
Yep.
Boston.
Yep.
So those two teams, those I guess underdogs, even though to call a team with Devin Booker, Kevin
Not,
Durant, and
may-
Bradley Beal an underdog would
not
be
maybe not underdogs. How about dark horses?
okay, dark horses. But even a Boston, Sean.
Even dark horse feels like a stretch. Like maybe like tier 2 contender. We could worry about the
Yeah.
semantics of the
Okay.
language ever, but I agree with you. They're
The
not the
tier
fake.
2 contenders, Sean, the Boston and the Phoenix are going to be the two teams that I want to see what their destiny is going to be like because they're teams that they could get bounced in the conference finals. Both of them could, but both of them could also win the NBA finals. So
Yeah. Troy, I'm surprised you didn't name this team because this is one of the teams that I'm really excited about this year. How about the Pacers, man? How
yeah,
about right down
yeah,
the road from you, my guy? My
yeah.
God. I mean, Troy, am I crazy for thinking that there's a chance this team could be better than Cleveland?
No, because of their star power of Tyrese Halliburton. Because Halliburton can put you over the hump in ways that
And
I
the
don't know if Donovan Mitchell can.
Yep,
Um,
and the composition of the roster as a whole. Yes,
right,
in Cleveland, you have Darius Garland, who's an absolute stud. You have Evan Mobley, who can be defensively dominant. Jarrett Allen, all that good stuff. But things didn't exactly end great,
right,
last season for them. Not a lot of great juju coming into the season. But more importantly to me, you look at the pieces that Indiana has, and it's just like a team composition that makes a ton of sense. It's complementing Tyrese Halliburton super well. And to
right. With
me, the
Brown and
biggest
Toppin.
mhm. Oh, absolutely. Obi Toppin thrown in there. Year 2, Benedict Mathurin. You got Jarris Walker playing the way that he did. If Tyrese Halliburton is just average on the defensive end, this isn't a play-in team. This is a playoff team. This is a
Right.
top 5 team in the East to me, like, right
Which is
away.
nuts, which is nuts. I mean, but you're right, because we're a better, I mean, not we, I'm not a Pistons fan, but the Pacers are a better roster than the Hawks.
Yep.
They're a better roster constructed. Okay, maybe not the Knicks. Maybe the Knicks. I don't know. We'll
Well,
see.
I mean,
To be determined.
the Knicks certainly is a team we have a lot of questions about. We're not
Yeah,
confident that they're gonna be the same team as they were last
sure.
year.
They have potential of being better than Knicks, and they certainly have potential of being better than the Cavs. So you're right. I mean, those are teams that, you know, last year around this time, we would be laughing to say the Pacers were better than, but at least,
I think they're gonna be this year's Sacramento Kings.
which would be very exciting. I mean, very exciting. But I am still a little bit curious to see what they're going to do with Buddy Hield and Miles Turner moving forward, because it sounds like they're all in a part of the future. But to me, Buddy's too much of a trade
Well, Buddy
piece that you
Hield,
want to take
like, that's
advantage
been
of.
pretty open that they're gonna trade him. I'm interested to see because especially, like, I feel like especially him alongside Tyrese Haliburton, I just love the fit.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it is interesting that every single situation where Buddy Hield ends up in, they end up getting rid of him relatively quickly. But I will say, as long as they can get comparable value or at least a couple guys who can fill a part of the rotation, I think Benedict Matherin's definitely ready to take the next step and
same.
have more of a role. I don't think you bring him off the bench this season. And then I think on top of that too, I think Jarris Walker, he's another guy where, like similar to Asar, like he's a guy where it's like you take him out the box, he's like no assembly required. This dude is an NBA player out of the box day one. Batteries included. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's insane.
Right, right.
I'd
It's
say
team
though,
basketball. You got one star with Halliburton, and then it's awesome complementary players around him. So
yep, 100%. And, with Asar, like with Asar and Jarris, those guys obviously being drafted back to back, Asar will be more linked to his brother Amen, obviously. However, Pistons fans with our history of drafting, I'm sure will naturally link those guys over time. However, I would say both teams have to be feeling pretty happy about the guys they got to pick that night.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, this is my favorite time of the year. I
Yeah.
mean, we're a couple of weeks away from, from the season starting. Not only the season starting, like we're under a month away from the in-season tournament starting too.
Oh
So
yeah.
like we're gonna have some interesting basketball in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really
And
excited.
even then, we still have some fun basketball leading up to that. Like we still have preseason to discuss. We still have
Mhm.
potential moves that could be made in training camp. Who knows what can happen, Troy?
Yeah. Wow. So you know where to find us
Oh,
from half court.
100%. You know when it goes down, you know where to go, dang it. It's from half court, Troy. It's always fun doing it. Like, obviously it's
Always
always a
fun.
bummer when we have to do an episode like when Jeff can't join us. My heart, the heart isn't full unless it's the full squad. However, you and I are definitely more than able to run it just you and I.
We
And
are.
yeah,
We are, man. We can do
yeah,
this.
yeah. We're like Chauncey and Rip. You know what I mean? We're like that
Yeah. We
dynamic.
want Ben. We really, really want Ben. We kind of need
Yeah,
Ben,
yeah.
but we're Chauncey and Rip.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe Jeff's Rashid because he's like a mouthpiece. You got to tell him to see. He gets so cocky. You got to tell him to shut up. Sometimes. No, I'm kidding. That's not Jeff at all. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you like this episode, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you're not missing any of the latest episodes and content coming to the channel. Also, be sure you're following my guys on X, Jeff at Jeff Iafrady, Troy on X at Troy Sergey 44, and you can find me on X at Sean Half Court. But that's gonna do it. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you're subscribed.